Hello, and welcome to another screencast. This one is going to be about modern Russia, the past 25 years since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. We've already talked about the geography and demographics. We've already talked about Russian history with communism and the Cold War. So make sure you have watched all of those screencasts. This one's going to be two parts. And the first part is going to start with these essential questions. Let me pull them up. This is for our entire Russia unit. We are looking at these three questions. Should the United States view Russia as a potential partner, a tough rival, or a growing threat? How do Russian policies affect the United States? What policies should the United States make to manage its relationship with Russia? So to answer those questions, we need to know a lot about Russia. And this is an important decision for our policymakers. Russia is an emerging power in the world. China is emerging. Russia's emerging. We're the sole superpower. But there's a question about is there going to be one or two superpowers? Are there going to be multiple regional powers? What's the world going to look like in your lifetime? And the decisions we make as a country now are going to shape that future. So, quick reminder, Russia is the largest country in terms of land mass in the world. It's also the 9th largest country in terms of population in the world, with about 146 million people. It's right above Mexico, that has about 126 million. Okay, so Russia in the 1990s. Let's go back to the 1990s. Communism falls. This guy standing on this tank becomes the new president. His name is Boris Yeltsin. He's standing on this tank. This is a famous moment in Russian history. The Communist Party is trying to take back over. They're staging a coup to get rid of the democratic government, but the democratic government led by Yeltsin hangs on to power. In the 90s, under Yeltsin, he's president for eight or 9 years. There's a lot of political and economic upheaval in Russia. It's not easy to transition from a dictatorship that's communist with a communist economy, one-party political system, into a free democracy with free market capitalism. It's not easy. So there's a lot of upheaval during the 90s. Russia also goes to war against one of the republics, an area called Chechnya. Something that's troubling for a lot of the Russian people is that under Soviet Union, they were guaranteed a job, healthcare, housing, retirement benefits, and education. And all of that now, as they transition to capitalism, it's all up in the air. People aren't sure if they're going to get those things that they had been guaranteed their whole life. So there's a big change for the people of Russia. They did pull down some statues. I know in the United States, we've been pulling down some statues the past couple of years. In the Soviet Union, they did this too. They pulled down a lot of the statues of Stalin and Lenin. There was more political freedom, so this was a good change. And there becomes economic growth. Even though there's a lot of economic hardship at times, there is economic growth since the fall of the Soviet Union. A lot of that has to do with oil and natural gas. Russia has a lot of oil and natural gas out in Siberia. Another thing that's going on for Russians is that they were the superpower and now they're not. And so this fall from their superpower status has left some people feeling humiliated and disgraceful and maybe a little resentful that they lost the Cold War to the United States. So after communism, they need to transition to a market economy, to capitalism, and they do this through something called shock therapy. A bunch of economists from the United States and other Western countries like France and Britain and Germany go over to Russia. They give them all this advice on how to transition their economy. So they get rid of price controls and wage controls. Hang on a second. Under communism, prices were set by the government, wages were set by the government. So they get rid of that. They trim the workforce. They sell off state-run businesses and farms. And then they do something called privatization, which is selling old government-owned businesses to the public. And they try to do all of these things fairly. And they set up systems for it to help the average Russian person, but it ends up not working out too well. So some successes of shock therapy, they closed some old inefficient factories. However, they never really saw a surge of new businesses start and investments start. That never really happened. They thought that people would do that, but it didn't really happen. So capitalism, when they first tried it, failed to deliver economic benefits. And part of the reason was that there's too much corruption and lack of know-how. If you grow up in a communist system where prices are set and wages are set and nobody owns businesses, you get a certain mindset about how to go about life. And capitalism takes a different mindset, a lot more individual initiative and taking risks. At any rate, another challenge that happens is that something called the oligarchs emerge. Who are the oligarchs? Well, here's some pictures of some of them. An oligarch in Russia the oligarchs were a small group of Russia's richest and most. Can you guys wait outside, please? I'll be out in a minute. Richest and most powerful men. They get power during the shock therapy by buying up all of the old resources of the Soviet Union, buying the factories, the farms, the mines. And so they take control over a lot of the economic resources of the country. So these are the oligarchs. An oligarchy is like you could have democracy, dictatorship, oligarchy. So it's a type of government. It's a government ruled by a few people. So that's what comes out of the 90s for Russia. You have an oligarchy. There is President Yeltsin is in charge, but these guys are also in charge. So they were motivated less by ideology, not communist, capitalist, but more by the desire to gain control of Russia's key industrial, financial, and military institutions. Sorry about that typo. So they're more about gaining power and control, which they do quite successfully. At the time, there's a Russian writer in 1998. She says, ordinary Russians do not understand what it means. What they see are the rich seizing power. They have a fatalistic approach and they hate everyone in power. Wow, that's pretty bad. So communism falls in 91. By 98, people are pretty disillusioned. The freedoms, the free market, the capitalism hasn't really delivered them, hasn't really made their life better. All right, that's the end of part one. See me if you have any questions or email me. Thanks.